Good evening, everybody. This is Lucy Duncan. Welcome to the City and School Sanctuary Policies webinar. This is one of a series of 5 Sanctuary Everywhere webinars that we're going to be doing this year. We're really grateful that you're here. We have a really great set lineup of presenters on the call. We're really excited to share that information with you. So we're going to start with some polls just to see who's here and see why you're here. So there's a poll right in front of you. The results will be shared with everybody. Just answer the question, why have you joined this webinar on city and school sanctuary policies? Hopefully the option that you would pick is on there. If you can do that, we'll do a little summary at the end. And I'm sorry that the phone people can't do this, but I will read the results to you so you have an idea of what other people said. Great. So far we have about 50% say that Trump's targeting of immigrants concerns them and they want to get involved. About 11% who have said, I have been involved and want to learn about city sanctuary policy work. 10% I have been involved and want to learn how to create sanctuary at my school or college. Nobody says I'm familiar with the presenters and wanted to learn from them at this point. 30% say I want to stop the massive targeting of immigrants and others targeted by law enforcement, and 5% say I've learned a lot from these webinars and want to learn more. Great to have you here, and thank you for responding. So I'm going to put up another poll that's just about so we can tell where you're all from. So I'm going to just put this one up. It'd be nice to see, and just go ahead and fill it out. Change this so you can all see it. Great. So we've got about 25% from Northeast states, 18% from Midwest states, 9% from Southwest states, 17% from Southeastern states, 17% from Western states, 9% from Northwestern states, and nobody from outside the US. Great, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's nice to see so many people from all over the country wanting to get involved. So now I'm going to pull up our presentation and introduce the first presenters. So Sanctuary Everywhere is the idea that people should be able to be safe, feel safe wherever they are, and that everybody should feel safe, not just certain people who have more privilege or more status in society. That we believe that everyone should feel that way, and that Sanctuary Everywhere is about learning techniques and tools and ways to keep each other safe, and to keep each other safe in substantive ways. By intervening in violence. Some of you may have been in the bystander intervention training last month. Sometimes that may be interrupting an ICE raid. Sometimes it may be intervening in the case of police harassment. There's lots and lots of ways. Sometimes it can be offering congregational sanctuary. We've had a call about that also. And the idea in Sanctuary Everywhere is about everybody. So anybody that's targeted by law enforcement, and particularly the immigrant community, which is what we're going to focus on more tonight, but the Black community and the Muslim community that are more targeted by law enforcement disproportionately. Obviously, there are others that are targeted, trans community, and we offer tools and techniques for working to keep those people safe as well. But tonight we're going to be focusing on city and school sanctuary policies. There's right now, as you all know, there's a really escalating attack on the immigrant community. Just last week on Thursday, Ravi Ragbir, who is the executive director of the New Sanctuary Coalition in New York City, and actually married to our staff member, Amy Gottlieb, who is the Northeast Regional Director, Associate Regional Director, went to his check-in and was detained and was taken to Florida. He's actually going to be taken back to New York, but he was targeted, and then another person who we've worked with, Alicio, who is married to Ingrid, who is in sanctuary in Fort Collins, Colorado, with whom we've worked quite a bit, and a number of other immigrant leaders have been targeted. And it seems like a concerted effort to kind of chill the movement. Also, there's news that there's going to be a massive immigrant raid in Northern California because California has a sanctuary policy statewide. So there's also targeting in places where there's sanctuary. That does not mean that we need to step back from those policies. I think local resistance is really, really critical, and trying to test these laws that are local and municipal laws and trying to find really strong ones so that we can really resist the attacks on the immigrant community. And really now is the time to be doing that. So tonight we have a really great presentation. We're going to have 3 parts. We're going to start with Erica Johnson and Jaja Wang, who hopefully will be able to stay on the call. And they're going to be talking about city and school sanctuary policies and what makes them, how to get one enacted that actually can make a difference and isn't just symbolic. Then we're going to have Lee Adorno, who's from Cosecha, who's going to talk about organizing on campuses. And last, we're going to have Lisa Marie Alvarado, Jasmine, and Laura talk about school policies and how they got a really strong policy in Miami enacted. They're going to give you tips on how to do this yourself. After each segment, we're going to have a Q&A portion so that you can ask questions and get those hopefully answered. And I'm really excited and grateful that you all can be here and that they can be here and present. So we're going to get started. So Jaja and Erica are going to be presenting on the city sanctuary welcoming policies. So I'm going to turn it over to Jaja and Erica, and just let me know when you want me to advance the slides. I'm happy to do so. You can go ahead and unmute yourselves and go ahead. And Jaja works in our Newark office and Erica works in our Des Moines office, both for AFSC.
Yes, thank you, Lucy. Everybody can hear me well? Right.
Yeah.
So my name is Jaja Wang. I am with the American Friends Service Committee Immigrant Rights Program in Newark for working there for the last 13 years. And I have to say, though, the sanctuary policy is nothing really new, but it became really a heated topic because the new I guess administration has been targeting, so-called sanctuary cities. And then so today, we're gonna tag team working with Erica and to make this presentation. And we will start by, sharing with you why sanctuary policies are important. And then going through the key components, the principles for a good sanctuary policy, and then going to really share with you the tips that we think you can use to get involved and get this work started in your community. And then lastly, we will show you some example of good policy and bad policies, or, really symbolic, less meaningful policies. So Lucy, we can start with the slide. Okay, so I want to share with you an actual story that a woman that we work with, and this happened in a township called Montclair in New Jersey, and some of you may have heard of the township because it's a fairly progressive town. What happened to Lorenza was that there was a domestic dispute between her and her partner. And together they have 4 children in their house. So they were arguing and the police arrived. And then the police decided to arrest Lorenza, who is an undocumented woman. And Lorenza has been raising 4 children on her own. Her partner, was sort of in and out. And so that Sunday morning, Montclair Police Department took Lorenza into custody. And then when she arrived, they inquired her immigration status. So that's when they found out that she was undocumented. And they took also the initiative of informing Immigration and Customs Enforcement that, here we have a undocumented immigrants and what should we do? So there, and because Montclair doesn't have a local jail, so everybody who are being held needs to be held in county jail. And from county jail, she was transferred into ICE custody. And AFSC's detention team in New Jersey represented Lorenza and got her released. However, her life has changed forever. Now she's facing deportation, and her abusive partner has custody over all her children, and that Lorenza has not been able to work. So she's sort of living in poverty. So if Montclair Police Department were prohibited from inquiring her immigration status and has instituted a meaningful, sanctuary policy, and then things like this would not have happened. So I will share with you at the end what the Montclair policy looks like, and then something that maybe you would want to, you would not want to do because it's fairly symbolic. So Lucy, we can go down. So I want to ask Erica maybe to go through the principles that's important for a good sanctuary policy.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm Erica Johnson. I'm the director of the Immigrant Rights Program that we have here in Des Moines, Iowa. And so what I'll do, like Jaja said, is kind of just go over the general principles. As we've kind of already touched on, the broad view of these policies are that cities and municipalities, counties are enacting them in order to attempt to provide some level of protection for immigrants. They are sort of limited, that should be noted, but we'll dig into that a little bit more. So you can see there, we've put up the overview that these policies are policies that seek to keep immigrant communities safe and ensure that everyone, regardless of immigration status, is treated equally. They direct city resources and or agencies, meaning they direct them to do something, and they also uphold the Constitution. I think a simple way of saying all of that would be that they're policies that seek to limit the cooperation between ICE and local law enforcement. And it should also be noted that municipalities, again, whether they're cities or counties, are under no legal obligation to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. There are lots of resources out there, I should say, from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. That was one agency that helped us a lot as we were crafting our policy and creating our strategy here in Des Moines. National Immigration Law Center, in addition to AFSC, and all the good things we've put together. So there's four bullet points that we've laid out there. The first one, create a formal policy to minimize assistance to ICE, really has to do with the county or jail level. As Jaja mentioned in Lorenza's story, sort of illustrates that a lot of people are actually caught up in and funneled into the ICE detention system in the county jail level, on the county jail level. So what that would look like is it would be important for you to do some research to find out if you have any formal policies already on the books. And so these are things, and I'll get a little technical here, but these are things you might have heard of, things that are called 287G agreements or intergovernmental service agreements. These are, written agreements between local law enforcement, county jails, county sheriffs, and the federal agency ICE that seek to train local law enforcement as ICE officers to enforce immigration law, or seek to or provide money for local jails to house detainees. But so one of the things that you would be looking for when you find out about those things is to remove those agreements if they do exist, and then instead pass things that limit physical presence of ICE officers in jails, limit questions that officers or jail staff can ask about immigration status, and requests that sheriffs, jail operators actively do not honor ICE detainer requests. So it's kind of a lot in that first bullet point, but again, sort of focusing really on what goes on at the county and jail level. So the second bullet point, prohibiting the use of local resources in any form of immigration enforcement, has to do more with city resources or funds. So passing a policy that blatantly says that no city resources should be used, meaning money should be used for the enforcement of federal immigration law. There are also things that on the city level that could be written to prohibit racial profiling, to prohibit officers from asking about immigration status. Again, going back to Lorenza's story, that was something that sort of opened the door and led down the path for her. Or there could be some more general statements of support. So the third bullet point, limit sharing information with federal immigration agencies. That largely encompasses the idea of notifications of release. And so if somebody is being held on the city or a county level, the local agency has the option of not notifying ICE of that person's release date. And then the fourth bullet point, ensure access to services. That encompasses a lot of those things that are listed there in the parentheses. So non-discrimination, language access, municipal ID cards, establishing some sort of immigrant commission, task force, or office, even establishing a legal fund for low-income immigrants who are detained. So those are sort of the broad principles. Got a little bit technical, but yeah, Lucy, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about where to begin. So it's important. So if you're thinking that this might be something that you're interested in engaging in or working on in your local community, it's important, number one, always to remember to connect with local immigrant-led organizations. And so connect to those immigrant organizations and identify stories, examples of why these type of policies are needed in your area. After that, sitting down and figuring out who has the decision-making authority in your town or in your county or at the jail, sort of doing some power mapping about that. And then once you figure that out, sitting down and meeting with them. So that could be meeting with local law enforcement officials, the chief of police or the sheriff, city officials, city manager in some cases, or elected officials like city council members or county board of supervisors. And then lastly, once you've done that, moving forward and advocating for a strong, meaningful policy over a symbolic statement. I think next slide, Lucy. So Jaja, hopefully you can jump in here too. This slide, we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the lessons that we've learned throughout the process. And the first one, the messaging is key, and it's important to know your local community. I can talk about in Des Moines, when we started having these initial discussions about passing some municipal policy in Des Moines, it was important that we used welcoming language instead of sanctuary language. The environment, for a couple of reasons. Number one, because the word sanctuary is such a politically loaded term right now. It was hard for us to sort of separate what we were talking about. And it was important for us to separate what we were talking about for a couple of reasons. Number one, because as I said at the beginning, municipal policies are limited in the actual protection that they can offer immigrants. And so we wanted to be sort of upfront in what it was that we were talking about, that we were talking about policies that would limit cooperation between ICE officers, but also provide certain number of things that would show the immigrant community that they were welcome. Things like language access and creating a task force, those kind of things. And then the second reason we wanted to differentiate between the welcoming and the sanctuary language is because we've got a network of churches in the state of Iowa that are offering sanctuary, that are working on sanctuary. And so we wanted to leave that word and that space for the faith community to really kind of reclaim. We've noticed that the word sanctuary in a way has sort of been politicized and taken over by politicians. And so we wanted to let, but throughout history, it's been a term that's been used by the faith community. So we were very conscious of that when we started working on this in Des Moines.
Yeah, so Thank you, Erica. So I just want to add that, messaging is very important. It not only, it really represents what you believe and how you engage people in this conversation. So besides fair and welcoming policy, other towns or cities have used like more rights-based name. For instance, Philadelphia is the Fourth Amendment city because they believe that nobody should be really detained arbitrarily, and that that really not just affects immigrant community member, but also it affects the larger community of color, because they're more likely to be racially profiled, and then therefore be detained with no reasonable causes. And then the last is something that's really important. You do want to expect pushbacks and then get ready for that. A lot of the pushbacks could be from citizen communities or from elected officials. And then some of them use or believe that, this has something to do with national security, with safety, but, you have the opportunity to sort of use that and then say that, hey, if community members cannot trust police and report crimes, right? What kind of safe community are we talking about? If people are afraid in working with local government, going to City Hall to seek services, then we're not really creating a safe community. Erica, you have anything to add?
I think we kind of skipped the second bullet point, and that's maybe
that's very important too.
One, right? But yeah, just wanted to highlight that any work should be directed and or driven by the immigrant community. So that's why we mentioned, the first place, if you're thinking about doing this in your own community, the first place to start is obviously connecting with the immigrant-led organizations, the immigrant community, individual leaders to see what stories there might be, and to really sort of take the cues from them in this environment where those are the folks that are being, if we're talking about being targeted by ICE, by the U.S. government, those are the folks who are going to suffer the most. And so making sure that everything we do is driven by that community is really important. I think that's it for that slide, right? Yep.
Yeah, so we talked about Montclair. Lorenza is from Montclair and lived in Montclair and was affected by Montclair police, unlawful arrest and detention, or transfer her into ICE custody. And then around the same time, it was last year, the city council of Montclair actually adopted a sanctuary policy. And it's very hard to read. I guess I didn't enlarge the font enough. So basically, it's 2-page policy. One, first, whereases, basically say that, the Montclair township respect human rights for all, and that believe that, immigrants bring, contribution to our society and our community. But then the second page, you see the policy says, Montclair police should not, the city of the township of Montclair should not be engaging in immigration enforcement. However, should follow New Jersey's Attorney General's Directive 2007.3, which actually mandates local law enforcement to inquire immigration status upon arrest of all indictable crimes. So what we know is that, the AG's directive has negative implication and impact on immigrant community. For a sanctuary policy that actually highlights that directive and stating that they're going to follow is actually truly not a sanctuary policy. So the Attorney General's directive is actually should be a separate issue, and then should be worked out in a different space. So and then that's pretty much what the policy is about. So next slide. So on the contrary, AFSC in New Jersey worked with another group of advocates and lawyers to come up with a stronger and more meaningful policy. And then that policy was adopted by some municipalities in New Jersey. And one of them is the city of Newark, where AFSC's office is. So as you can see, some of these titles, these are just 3.5 pages out of 8 pages substantive, policy. The first one is exactly what Erica talked about, prohibits local law enforcement from entering into 287G agreement, from entering into, immigration detention contract, or other kind of collaborative program that would assist in immigration enforcement. And then the third would be prohibits sharing of information. And then also the fourth bullet, or the part 4, is about prohibit bias and racial profiling, anti-discrimination, and that really affects larger more people than just immigrant community member. That's a very important thing to have and to build coalition around this issue. And then the following pages I couldn't squeeze all everything in, but pretty much has everything that Erica listed as key principles or key components that a good sanctuary policy should have. Establish legal funds, create municipal ID, ensure language access, things like that. So this is a good example, and we can also make this policy available, to all of you if you like. Erica, you have anything to add?
I don't. I think that covers it. Do we do questions?
Yes, just a second. So I'm going to bring up the Q&A panel. For those of you who are able to see the computer, you may, if you don't see the Q&A panel, which should be showing right now, at the bottom left, there's a presentation panel and a Q&A panel, and just click on the Q&A panel. You can ask questions here, and I'll call them out and ask Erica and Jaja to answer them. And you can also use the tabs to return to the Q&A panel at any point. So if there are any questions. I'm going to show, and then I'm going to answer it. So I didn't do one, but so someone is asking, is someone taking notes? Can you send us the components of a sanctuary policy? That's a good question. So it sounds like we can send you the sample policies, a copy of that. And this whole thing is being recorded. We can also upload the slides, so you can look at the slides again.
Just a reminder for anybody who is on the phone, you can email those questions to questions@afsc.org.
Thanks. Any other questions? Oh, here we go. So sorry, I sometimes forget to scroll down. So what are strategies to respond when sanctuary policies exist in paper but are ignored by police? Jaja and Erica, you want to try that?
I think this is Erica. I think that's for us in Des Moines. That's why it's so important that we have policies on paper. So we actually in Des Moines, we didn't get the policy yet that we're looking for. We've got some nice things that have been said by city leaders that we appreciate and are certainly moving in the right direction. But unless things are written down on paper, it's hard to hold people accountable. So, and this, this goes for policies related to the kind of things that we're talking about. So, for example, like directing officers not to ask about immigration status, or directing officers not to racially profile and discriminate. So if you have a policy written down, then, many departments have their sort of discipline matrix or their own way of dealing with officers or staff who don't abide by those policies. So we haven't gotten that far in Des Moines yet. I don't know, Jaja, if you have any ideas, but I think that what you're sort of underscoring why it is so important to have policies on paper, because if you don't have them written down, then it's very hard to hold people accountable.
Yeah, it is very important. That's why it's important to have a good policy, the very detailed, specific policies directing city agencies what to do. And then one thing that I didn't mention, and I think this question sort of reminds me of that, and I believe that it exists in the Newark policy, is actually it requires local police, Newark police, to report on a biannual or annual basis the number of incidents where they share their people's immigration status, as well as where they actually transfer people into ICE custody. Because oftentimes there are exceptions where, law enforcement has to sort of, or are required to cooperate by federal law. For example, if there is a federal crime investigation, and they're obligated and have to follow. So make sure that there is a reporting requirement. Make sure that, that those requirements should be made, those reporting or data should be made public, that hold them accountable, and so that, they're less likely to do something that's different from the policy that mandates them not to do.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. So the next question is, where are other places that have good policies in place?
So I think that, I think there's too many municipalities, and I don't think we can enlist all of them. Newark, New Jersey is a good one. I can send that example, but I do want to highlight that California Value Act is a good one on the state level. And I think because there are less, state level policies, it's probably easier to list them. And then, and I believe that Illinois has one. Mm-hmm. And then maybe one or two other states have also pretty good, strong sanctuary policy.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Amanda. To what extent is the academic community involved in these issues, according to your experience? i.e. universities, academics, and students.
In Des Moines, our school board actually was, the Des Moines Public School Board was really involved in this early on, and they actually passed what they called a sanctuary policy in February of 2017. So they were in more advanced than the city, certainly, on this issue. But they were involved also in pushing the city, or attempting to push the city to pass a strong policy. But I think, and maybe through that work, then teachers and students were engaged and aware of the issue and involved in the municipal process too. There's a couple of universities around the state who have said a couple of things. I can't remember. I need to go back and look and see what specific policies they've actually passed. But certainly there's conversations with the academic community happening, and they're helpful.
We also are going to have a presentation about campus organizing, so that'll be in a minute, actually, just next. So 2 more questions. Let's try and do these fairly quickly so we can have Lee go ahead and present. So one is, can you share an example of pushback to such policy proposals? And then there's one more.
Maybe Erica can share pushback in Iowa.
Yeah, we got a lot of pushback in Iowa. It was, city leaders thought that, I think, the overarching thing was that they thought that their statements, their welcoming statements, were enough. And so when the community came back and said, no, that's not enough, we want something on paper, they were very reluctant to do that. And that's reflective of other things that we've seen with the city of Des Moines, sort of their reluctance to take the really bold, courageous stand that we were asking them to do. So we've got some work to do.
Great. And the last question is from Annalise. Who should I contact within my local government about these policies?
Well, I mean, yeah. So initially, it's good to connect with immigrant organizations and immigrant communities, and sort of make sure that it's something that people want to do. And then once that step has been done, if it's been done already, doing that power mapping would be important. And so it's probably, I think it's true that it depends on your community. Local governments are set up differently depending on the city. So figuring out who's actually the person that has the decision-making authority. You can certainly start with your city council person, your local representative, and just sit down and sort of take their temperature and get a sense of how if they're even thinking about this issue, if it's on their radar or not. Connecting with the chief of police or the sheriff, all of those things are good places to start.
Great, thank you. Thanks to both of you. So we're going to move on to Lee, who is from Cosecha, who's going to be presenting about organizing on campuses. So hopefully that addresses some of the academic community question also. So go ahead, Lee, and tell me when you want me to advance slides.
Great. Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, thanks.
Okay, great. So yeah, my name is Lee. I am a volunteer organizer with Movimiento Cosecha. I am from New Jersey. I wasn't originally born there. I was born in Mexico, in el estado de Puebla, and I came here when I was 7 years old, and I've lived in Jersey since, in a small community of Union City, which is actually very Latin and Central American city. Is small, but it's a lot of diversity in there. And I've lived there my whole life pretty much. So it was really cool growing up with people from all around Latin America. Yes. So I've organized with a couple different orgs in the past, with the DREAM Act and the Immigrant Rights Movement. Right now I am with Movimiento Cosecha. And I'd like to speak a little bit on what that is and who we are, right? Because I know right now there's people from American Friends Service Committee and maybe the relationship, but I want to bring a little bit of light of what I'm doing with Movimiento Cosecha. So it's a nonviolent movement fighting for permanent protection, dignity and respect for the 11 million undocumented people in the United States. The name cosecha is the word harvest in Spanish, which for us honors the long tradition of farm workers who are organizing and the people who to this day are working on the fields, providing food for the whole country. We are committed to win victories for the people, right? Obviously, we put them first. Cosecha believes in non-cooperation to leverage power of the immigrant labor and consumption as a force to create shifts in public opinion, right? Our movement emerged about a year and a half ago from strategic planning by immigrant rights and DREAM activists who in the past were pretty much sick of seeing politicians battle for the vote of the immigrant people and then in the end never really do anything that would help our communities. For this very reason, Cosecha is very big on not relying on traditional tactics, or we don't dance with political parties. our campaigns are very multifaceted, but always focus on like the power of immigrant communities and activating the public to create a climate shift. Yeah, and just I guess like Cosecha has no paid staff. We mostly rely on donations. So like if people are interested, maybe in the end I could send out a link where people can donate. For people who do volunteer work like myself, I'm doing this full time for now, until we are able to create some change. So I know this session is on Sanctuary Campus, and I want to first and foremost like begin on how this like thing started, right? So why did this come up? And the way that I saw it, right, was that this like was initially sparked by the popular student reaction to Trump winning the election, right? Nobody was happy about that, at least not where I was in New Jersey, right? Because he had publicly like shamed a lot of people. Like he was talking a lot of bad stuff about like communities of color. And then when he came after the undocumented people, right, it was just like, wow, like I can't believe this guy actually won and he's actually president right now. And that resonated with a whole bunch of students, right? And then I feel like that transformed to solidarity with undocumented students, right? But like, why did it go viral? And what I think happened was that there was like a close connection, right, between the universities and the historic aspect of the Dream movement, right? Where they're like come together, right? The Dream movement, every time we think about it, we think about kids in like those graduation hats and whatever, doing protests outside the schools, outside the DC. And I think that's why like it just connected very well, and students wanted to bond with each other and show themselves as like a unity type of thing. And because of that, people were super encouraged to do walkouts and demand the schools to be more supportive towards students of color, people who were undocumented, people who were Muslim, people of color, just everyone, right? And yeah, and then we saw that was the similar reaction across the country, and we were able to like coach different schools or different groups of people who maybe it was their first time organizing and didn't really exactly know how to go about it. So we were able to play a role on that. But yeah, if anyone has questions, y'all can like write them on the board as I go, because I know it might be hard to like recollect your questions. And yeah, so
I just want to make sure everybody knows to like, if you want to ask a question, go to the Q&A panel. If you want to see the presentation, go to the presentation panel. It's on the left down below. So do you want the next slide, Lee?
What slide are we on? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so what was it like actually, right? So it was a sheet of asks, right? And it wasn't the same sheet because like different campuses and different schools, I guess, were at a different level on how they supported undocumented or documented students. So some of them would be more supportive, some of them wouldn't. So like it depended like on that people based their asks on. So one example was that like the university will refuse all voluntary information with sharing with ICE, right? Or that university refused ICE physical access to the property. Another one would be like the university would not use E-Verify. So like it would depend on the university and how things like were different. That yeah. So it wasn't like one similar across the country, but like different variations of asks. And yeah, so like that was like our I guess our target, but our target had two parts. That was only part of it, and that was like the secondary part. Our actual target was the people, the schools, and the students themselves. We wanted to create an urge and a climate shift, to polarize them pretty much and ask them like, what side are you on, without asking it, right? Forcing them to make a choice on like standing your ground and not letting like somebody just come to you and tell you that you're nothing, right? to stand together, to stand strong, and to show student power. And that was what the actual like heart of Sanctuary Campus was. It was no actual like thing that would prevent ICE from coming onto campus, right? Because nothing can really stop that. Like that's the reality of it. That if they have a warrant, they can step into wherever it is that they want and take whoever it is that they're looking for. But it was more about like creating that mind shift. As for like the schools themselves, many schools didn't want to do it because they were threatened to losing funding, right? What we saw was that like some public schools and some private schools had like different hurdles, if you can say. Like where like public schools were more like worried or like scared about losing funding, and they couldn't meet like requirements such as like, oh, we're gonna help undocumented students pay for like some of their tuition because like their state didn't allow them to, right? Like in Jersey, we don't have like state financial aid for undocumented students. So like even if the school wanted to, like they couldn't because the state wouldn't allow them. And then they were also scared that they were going to lose funding. One thing that we did see from the private schools was that they had a little bit more power over their private property. But still in the end, like they can't really do much to stop ICE. And then in some cases, like at St. Peter's, where I'm going to talk about a little bit in like right now, was that we tried to like brainstorm the possibilities of maybe using like a university church to like create a sanctuary space. But it was more like a brainstorm idea to see if we could actually do it. So yeah, and that's how it kind of like what looked like at a national level. I can talk a little bit about what I saw at a local level at my school, because when we were doing this stuff, I was actually in my senior year of college. And for me, it created like a big question or a big dilemma or conflict in my life. As soon as I saw Trump win, because for me, it has been a mission for me to like get through school. I've had to work several jobs. I lost my athletic scholarship. I had to be a school dropout for like a year and some change. It has been really tough. And for me to like see everything that I've worked for with other undocumented students to change, be taken back with Trump, right, was definitely heartbreaking, definitely like mind blowing in a way. I was worried for my family for the most part, because I knew that somehow the country thinks of dreamers as like, you know, like good dreamers, but like I was going to leave that space. After I had graduated, I wouldn't be one of those dreamers that you see on TV, you know? I would just be a regular undocumented person. And for me, that was very challenging to accept. And like I started asking myself these questions, or I asked myself like, okay, well, say that the school protects me, like who's going to protect my parents, right? In my heart, in my mind, I know that only 3% of the undocumented people are students. That leaves like a whole 97% outside with absolutely no protection, or people haven't even been talking about them, right? So like I felt really bad being inside a school, knowing that my whole community was unprotected. And that's why in my school, I pretty much just asked people to like walk out at a certain day, at a certain time, and told them just walk out and meet me at the quad. And then from the quad, I was able to like, you know, express how I was feeling. And we were able to like march around the school, like showing people that we were not content, that we're not going to continue our day to day pretending that this didn't happen, right? And when we did that, the school still didn't come out with something in support of us, right? They still hadn't said, oh, we're going to be a sanctuary school. So I felt that I had to do more, you know? And for me, I was like, how do you expect me to go back to school knowing that my whole life has been put at risk by the president himself? And so what I did was that I stopped going to school. I decided one day, I was like, no, I'm not going to pretend that nothing's bothering me. I'm not going to go take a math test. I'm not going to go like sit down and read a book. That's not me right now. Right now, my life is at stake, right? My parents can be deported and my life can change in an instant. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to graduate, right? That's what I was thinking. And so I stopped going to school, and instead I wrote a letter to the students on my university, where I told them my struggle. I told them that I was fed up with the fact that like people kept treating us like crap, and that people were so heartless with their bills, that I had to see my mom cried by herself because she didn't have a family here when her mom died. And I shared all of that with her, with the people, and I posted this letter all around campus. And I still told them that I was not going to go back to school until the school told me that they were going to become a sanctuary campus. And I'm not sure what happened, but like the students were reacting, you know. They also like started, you know, talking to the president of the school. I got to talk to the president of the school and other people who were like, you know, we understand, but you have to go back to school. And like, and I had to like go back and forth. Like, I really can't, because like it's affecting my community. It's affecting people who don't have protection. And eventually we were able to pass a sanctuary campus policy without calling it a sanctuary campus, because again, schools were scared to lose funding. Yeah. So the win behind this campaign, or like this national like thing that happened, was that many schools adopted the sanctuary asks, right? We saw schools like in Ohio, in Oregon, in at Colombia, like even Ivies were picking up to it. Rutgers had like a really big turnout. And all over the country, we saw that a lot of people were resonating with what we felt. And universities were adopting more like undocumented friendly policies in their schools. So that was really good. And another really big win was that many students who were engaged then, it was their first time ever like doing a walkout, was their first time ever doing like a protest type of thing. And for me, I feel like that was a win because like I got to see them later on the years as we organized different actions. If you see on the pictures here, we have a picture of like the symbolic statue in Colombia asking for education at deportation. And we try to recreate it. It wasn't just one day, but like multiple days in different parts of the country. We see like the Texas high school students on the side there, which was really cool because like if I was in high school, I wouldn't have done it. But like the message just resonated so much that even high school students were out and about. And yeah, we were able to establish like that the dream movement was strong even under the Trump presidency, and that we were not gonna stop like at all, and that like pretty much it was the beginning to like a whole rebirth of the dream movement. Yeah. So locally, like, yeah, St. Peter's was able to become a sanctuary campus, and then I was able to graduate, and now I'm doing full-time organizing with Movimiento Cosecha. If you liked what some of the work that Cosecha has been doing, I don't know if you follow us on Facebook, or if maybe it's your first time listening to me speak about Cosecha, I would invite you to visit us on Facebook or visit us at lahuelga.com, where you see more actions that we've done in this year. So like, I know we've done one in Texas, we did one in New York. I was part of the Dream 7 a month ago, where we were arrested in Schumer's office, asking for a Clean Dream Act, and we stayed in jail for 6 days, doing hunger strike and stuff.
Great. Thank you very much, Lee. So we have a couple questions that came in, but the first one is a statement. I don't have a question, but just want to say thank you for sharing your powerful story. So I appreciate that as well. So there's some questions also. The first one is from Megan, and she asks, is your group mostly high school students or college students?
I guess just a little clarification. What do you mean by my team? Like at Cosecha?
Yes, I think that's what I think that's the question.
Yeah, so at Cosecha, we have what we call the volunteer organizing network, which is the people who are doing full-time work. And then we have like people who are in their local states. So that is kind of different right now with the VOs. The volunteer organizing network is more like college age, traditional college age, or like, yeah, mostly youth. I wouldn't say high school levels, but more like college levels, age type of thing. I know it's traditional age. I know people go back to college and stuff, but like traditionally, that around that age. And then our locals are more like elder folks, people who've been here for a while, people who go to work every day, just normal people.
Great, thanks. So the next question is, what inspired you most as you were organizing? From email.
Yeah, I think the thing that inspired me the most is, well, I don't really know, to be honest. I feel like we have to find different inspiration every day because, I mean, a lot of the times people just throw out hate, and it's challenging sometimes to keep like one thing motivating you, because like it definitely is definitely a lot of draining work, emotionally draining work. But if I would say pick something, it's just like the fact that like I love my family like more than anything, and that I'm willing to take risks and get in front of people's faces and do whatever it takes for me to keep my family together.
Great, thank you. Here's another question. From email, what advice do you have for other undocumented students who are organizing?
Yeah, so I think my best advice would be let's not be silent. Be as verbal as you can, be as visible as you can. Our parents, or at least my parents and some of the people that I know, like we all connect with the fact that for us, they told us to hush, their fight was in being silent, right? And they saw us grow up, and now that we're big or, older, we are able to fight back. Our role is not to stay silent. Our role is to speak up. Our role is to get in front and say what we want,
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Can you talk about the difference in how the media portrays this is from email, good immigrants versus bad immigrants?
Right. And I feel like this changes every so often, right? So like when Trump goes up and he says, they're criminals, they are bad, right? I feel like that in itself, a lot of people just let it fly by and they're like, yeah, they're criminals. But like the fact of the matter is that like to the Trump administration, criminals, it's everyone who's here undocumented is criminals. Also the fact that yeah, like they see the dreamers as in like, oh, it wasn't our fault. Our parents brought us. We kind of like throw our parents under the bus, like, oh, just help the dreamers. But like, how are you gonna help us if you're like forcing us to choose between us and our parents, And that's kind of like a critique that I have on like a lot of politicians who come out and say, I support you guys, I stand with you, I understand you. It's like, no, you don't. You're trying to criminalize. Well, you actually criminalize my parents every day, and you're trying to deport them. How do you stay in front of me and say that you support me?
Okay, great. Just a second, I'm checking. All right, there's a couple questions from just around where Cosecha is. Do you have any networks in North Carolina? And then are there any in Colorado?
Not in Colorado yet, and I don't think we have North Carolina. I know we have a really strong one in Georgia, and I think Florida right now. But like the thing with Cosecha is that like if you have a small group maybe of like 3-4 people who want to like start up with Cosecha, like you have the support from like our national volunteer organizing network, and you have like a trainer to come down and like teach you like, oh, this is what we're trying to do. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Do you have like a better idea? That type of stuff. So like you don't really need many people. Like if you're interested, just get 3 more people and then give us a call and just tell us that you want to start Cosecha, and we'll be there.
Okay, so and then there's somebody who says they're part of the University of Denver's Immigrant and Refugee Rights Collective, and they want to know if you'd be willing to do a Skype webinar with their group. So we can, you can send me an email, Amanda, lduncan@afsc.org, lduncan@afsc.org, and I'll pass it along to Lee. How does that sound?
Yeah.
If you're interested. Okay, great. And then the spelling of the organization, it's Cosecha. Yeah. Okay,
on
great.
Facebook, we are Movimiento Cosecha. That's our national page.
Okay.
And then if you want to look at other state cosechas, like their local Cosecha groups, then you could put like Cosecha New Jersey, Cosecha Boston, Cosecha, and you find a state like that. But if you want to contact the whole national Cosecha, it would be Movimiento Cosecha.
If you want to put that in the Q&A panel, Lee, yourself, and then I'll make sure that everybody can see it. And we'll include it. We'll include something about it also in the email that we send. Great, thank you so much, Lee. That was really, really powerful. And we're going to move on now to, and this is I think you mentioned this is an image of you graduating. So we're going to move on to the school sanctuary policies with Lise Marie, Jasmine, and Laura, and they're on the phone. So when I just want to tell you that the images right now are of Laura and Jasmine. That's on the left. They're speaking with a reporter, and then Lise Marie is in the middle here with a huge bright smile. She's often in pictures with groups of people, mostly with young people. So Lise Marie, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello everyone. Buenas noches. Well, my name is Liz Maria Alvarado. I'm an immigrant from Nicaragua, and I am an organizer with AFSC in Miami, where we engage in advocacy and organizing efforts, and we also provide legal support to immigrants and refugees. Before sharing about our victory in Miami-Dade County School Board, I would like to share about the context in which that work took place. Well, as many of you know, Miami has long been known as a place that welcomes immigrants. It's a place where there's actually an immigrant majority. The majority of people that live in this county were not born in the U.S. However, last year, our Republican county mayor, Carlos Jimenez, who himself is an immigrant from Cuba, ordered our county to fully cooperate with immigration authorities for the fear of losing federal grants. In fact, our mayor was the first one to bow down to Trump and, and be defeated under his threats on sanctuary cities. He even got a special tweet from him, which was pretty embarrassing for us. And since then, the Miami-Dade County jails have been keeping people beyond their arrest periods for the mere fact of being undocumented. It spends taxpayers' money in doing ICE jobs for free, and it doesn't get reimbursed. But what is worse, and what is the most destructive for us, is that it tears family apart. It increases the distrust between law enforcement and our immigrant community, and it leads to more racial profiling by the police, and it violates the U.S. Constitution, including the prohibition against unlawful seizures under the Fourth Amendment and the guarantee of due process under the 14th Amendment. And it also violates Florida's law that prohibits jail officials from detaining people for civil immigration purposes. So as AFSC, we condemn these actions by the mayor that happened early last year. We heard from community members, from panicked parents who worry about bringing their children to school. We also heard from undocumented children who were afraid of going to class. And that's why we decided to organize and do something that can improve our harsh reality when we have a federal government and a county government that doesn't support immigrant families. So the school board resolution was a result of many months of advocacy and pressure to the school board. During the final hearing, parents, children, community leaders, we packed the public school headquarters, and we urged the board to do the right thing. It was a huge victory for us, and it definitely lifted our spirits in a very crucial time. And on that note, I would like to share with you 7 key lessons from our work on the Safe Zone resolution in Miami, which perhaps could be of use to you if you would like to do something similar with your public schools. Number one, know that change is possible even in challenging political environments. Even if you live in a city or county that has enacted anti-immigrant policies, don't assume that the school board agrees with them. Like in our case, our school board passed a resolution just 2 months after the county mayor decided to collaborate with immigration authorities. So sometimes good things happen in the most unpredictable circumstances, like in our case. Number two, do your research and get to know your school board. Find out what your school board district's current policies to protect immigrant children and their families. If you can find any reading policies online or the library, then you can also contact your local representatives and they should be able to help you. Also get to know the school board members and their positions on different issues. It is critical to establish a relationship and to know who they are. In Miami, we developed our relationship with school board member Luby Navarro, who ended up being our champion and the one that also helped encourage other board members to support the resolution. Number three, know what you want in a resolution. Really, don't expect the school board member to have all the answers. In our case, she wasn't really familiar with what happened, like in terms of what was happening to immigrant families in the community. She just had a vague idea. So we literally wrote it for her. And then she just made some amendments. We literally wrote the resolution. And because we wanted to make sure it was something that makes sense for our communities, so some things that you can consider to put in a resolution for your communities, just make sure that it prohibits ICE agents from setting foot on school campuses, that it keeps school staff from asking about a student's immigration status or their families, and even less reporting them to ICE. To also make sure that the resolution requires ICE agents who are requesting information to be directed to the school board district attorney office. Also to offer students and family counseling, but most importantly, also know your rights presentations and support in gaining access to college for undocumented youth. And also, you can put something that has a plan for a safe place plan to keep families prepared in case a student or parent is taken away by ICE. So that's something that I suggest. Number 4, build diverse coalitions. If you're not part of a group already, find out what community groups exist, organizations, coalitions. Find out if there's people already organizing or lobbying the school board to pass a resolution to ensure that schools are safe for and welcoming to new students. Connect to your PTA associations, school teachers, administrators, etc., congregations. Here in Miami, as AFSC, we are part of the Florida Immigrant Coalition, which was key to the success of the resolution. And we also had a strong support from the Miami Friends meeting, especially during the last day where we presented the resolution. Number 5, make sure the people directly impacted have a voice and a leading role. In Miami, families took part in the planning efforts. They testify at the school board meetings, email, call, met with board representatives, urged other community members, other parents to make sure their voices were heard. And most importantly, also make sure that young people have the opportunity to step up as leaders in this advocacy work. Because very often children are just talked about as mere victims, but it's also important for us to give them opportunity to take control over their life and help push policies that will benefit and protect them. And one of our most visible and effective spokespeople is Jasmine Lopez, who will be sharing her letter in a bit with you. Number 6, also use every tool as an opportunity to advocate. Try to reach everyone you know to build support, write letters to the editor, engage through social media, write to school board members, call them, start a petition. You just have to be open, creative, very loud, and clear in your beliefs that schools should be safe zones for children and their families. And lastly, 7, unsettled for symbolic or watered down policies that are not effective. Like in our case, when we first proposed a safe zone resolution in Miami, we were met with resistance and ridicule from the school board. Actually, some of the school board members suggested that instead of passing a comprehensive resolution, that the board would simply just say a statement like, we love all children, everybody's welcome here. And we were not having any of that. So we pushed for more, and at the end, we achieved our goal of passing a resolution that will help make those schools more safe. But this, of course, was done thanks to the collective effort of different organizations, but mostly of parents and youth that were involved. And you can do this as well. I encourage you to take action. Please use all of the ASSC sanctuary resources we have, and also feel free to contact me or any of my colleagues for support. And also, I invite you to get involved in other issues beyond immigration when it relates to schools. As you know, public education is under attack. Black and brown youth are being criminalized, sent to prison, and denied the right to a decent education. So there's many things that we can link, and I want schools to be a safe zone for immigrant youth, but also for all youth, not just for those who are immigrants. So this is something that we take very seriously here in Miami, and we partner and support other organizations that are advocating for these other issues. Thank you, everyone. And now we're going to hear from Laura, who is a tireless community advocate with ASSC, a dear friend, a colleague, and the proud mother of Jasmine. So now I will pass the mic to Laura. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura, and I'm a dreamer from Mexico. Me and my daughter, Jasmine, have been activists in Florida since about 2012 with several.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Where was I? Yes. Well, we are currently involved with ASSG, and we have participated in several actions. One example was that we were speakers at the Miami-Dade Public School Board meeting last year to support the H7 resolution for sanctuary schools. I shared my story about how I came to the U.S. at the age of 6, 20 years ago, and at that time it was scary for me and for my parents to take me to school, as it was still for me and my undocumented husband to bring our daughter to school years later still. Also, how DACA has given me a small relief and an opportunity to higher education 11 years after graduating high school. But when Mayor Jimenez gave into his anti-sanctuary policies, I felt very, very confused and betrayed. We as a family felt very unprotected. Because I would think that Mayor Jimenez would actually be on the side of justice for his community and not bought by the current administration, but to represent his county. So as a parent, it was very important to create an immigration-free zone because it was very stressful. To live with uncertainty of being detained and confronted about your status by any police or any immigration agent for any reason while dropping our kids off to their school. It is at times actually really confusing with politicians, so having support and making that support, I would say, public is extremely important. As a dreamer and a mom, my hope for the future is for more fair and permanent solutions for our families and everyone. And also on a personal level will be to finish fulfilling my dreams of becoming a dentist safely alongside my husband and my daughter. Not fearing being targeted by ICE or police, and not being on a limbo and not sure of what our future will be because of unfair laws and.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Lopez, and I am 11 years old. I have been a young leader since I was like 6 years old, and I have done many events with AFSC. I have been with them since 2016. I decided to take action about ICE taking undocumented parents in school while dropping off their children, because all kids have a right to an education. School should be a safe haven for all children and their parents. And now I would like to read my letter that I read at the school board. Starting today is a day for all of us to gather around as a community and fight for our immigrant friends and family. As an 11-year-old girl, I have always been scared of losing my parents, especially when I walk, take a bus, or drive to school in the morning. I don't know how this feels. I know how this feels. It is very sad. Did you know a data chart shows that 2.5 million people in the years 2009 and 2014 have been deported? Most of these humble people are good people. They might be families just like mine. So today, I am here to say that we have to protect our immigrant friends and family. This goes to our current administration as well. My people, my family, didn't come to harm this country. They came so the children would have a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. One amazing. And this is the pictures that you see on the screen are Jasmine reading, and that's the superintendent behind her reading her that letter to the school board. Very, really, really inspiring.
She wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Okay, thank you. When they passed the resolution, I felt very relieved. I felt like I was going to be safe when my mommy dropped me off to school. I felt all of my courage in standing up was worth it. I represent myself as well as other children, but I would like to invite your children, the children in your life, as well. They can become a leader too by talking to their school board members and writing them letters in their county and telling them they need a sanctuary school too to protect all of the students and parents. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Very, very moving. And again, those are the images of Jasmine reading this letter to the school board and with the superintendent behind her. So we're going to go ahead and open it up for questions. And then we have a final thing. And I'm going to let, I'm going to go ahead and let Lori handle these questions if you can see them. So here's one question that I can see. Living in a city like Miami, which has publicly declared they would collaborate with ICE, how do you foresee sanctuary school policies would work out as expected? Obviously, limiting safety to schools is not enough safety for anyone.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Living in a city like Miami, which has publicly declared they would collaborate with ICE, how do you foresee sanctuary school policies would work out as you hope? Obviously, limiting safety to schools is not enough safety for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, but it's better than nothing, unfortunately. And we are still trying to battle what the mayor did last year, but in the legal round. And we have some very good news actually this week that the lawsuit is going through. But what we're doing in the schools is important because we actually have access to the schools to give Know Your Right presentations, to the youth, but also to the parents, which we were not allowed in the past, at least be very open about, like, just about immigrant rights in that sense. So that has been pretty good. And also just like the morality of it, especially when we're still fighting against our county, right? That to at least to know that the school board is in the right side on this issue. So it serves for us as political leverage, you know, and for talking points to know that the school board is in the side of the immigrant community. But I agree with the person that wrote the question. I mean, it's not enough. It's not what we want, but it's what we have right now, and it has given us great opportunities to reach to folks and to also educate teachers and the rights of the students, and even on how documented students can access higher education, for example.
Great, thank you. So we got disconnected, and so we lost some of the questions. So if you had a question about this portion, go ahead and re-enter it. I think there was one question about whether it would be possible to see the policy that you all wrote. That was for the school policy. We can send that. We also have many of these things and many resources at our Sanctuary Everywhere website, which is at afsc.org/sanctuary everywhere. You can find a whole section on on all of these, on city sanctuary policies and school sanctuary policies, that you can find a lot of resources there. And the last thing, and there's an earlier question that was about, that's really for Jaja and Erica, which is, how do you reassure municipalities that are afraid of losing and violating federal funding by formalizing or writing down sanctuary-related policies? Are there legal organizations that have helped municipalities work through their concerns? That seems like a good question. Erica, you want to take that one?
Yeah, let me pull it up again so I can see it. That's a good question. Okay, so on the question of federal funding, I'm not an attorney. I should start by saying that, but that's one of the biggest questions that our city leaders had. We actually, one of the cities in the Des Moines metro area did end up passing one of the policies, and I think the way they dealt with that question was actually jumping on the phone with one of the national experts out of the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. This is a group out of California. We arranged a conference call with her and with Lena Graber out of that organization, and who was it? Someone from the city legal department, the acting police chief, and city council member, to really hone in, because in May there was a lot of questions specifically about that. So without going, again, too much into the weeds, this gets weedy really quickly, but the Trump administration has threatened to take away federal funding from cities, states, municipalities who pass these sanctuary type ordinances, policies. So far, that has all been held up in court, and the Department of Justice, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, has provided a little bit of guidance to tell cities specifically what they mean by sanctuary city policies, because we should say that there's no legal actual definition for sanctuary cities. And that has to do with a specific code of immigration law, 1373. So the way that we dealt with that in Des Moines and in Windsor Heights was that we just included that language in the ordinance to say specifically that in no way does any part of this ordinance go against, this section of immigration law, 1373. Again, because that was a directive that we were getting from the Department of Justice. So there are, it's important to include those kind of things in the policies to avoid that. And then, yes, there are organizations that can help work through those concerns.
Great. Thank you so much.
I wanted to mention something.
Yes, we're running a little bit short on time, but go ahead quickly if that would be great. Please,
I guess just for the record, Miami-Dade County has received 0 funds from federal government.
Has received what? Say that again.
We have not received any funds from the federal government, even though the mayor is complying with the anti-sanctuary policies.
Interesting.
Just for the record, there's no money coming through.
Okay, great. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of you. I know that this, and thank you for those of you who are still on the call. It's a lot of information, really powerful stories and powerful actions that I think are really, really important in order to protect people. We're going to end with some asks that we hope that you will do, and then we'll put up one poll before we leave. So what we hope that you will do is that you'll follow up, that you'll share the video that we'll be sending you of this webinar with other people who may be inspired to take action. We'll break it down into pieces as well, so that if there's one piece that's particularly compelling that you want to use as a resource, you'll have that as a separate thing. There's going to be we're going to share a blog post that basically tells the story of the Miami school sanctuary thing that Lisa Marie and Jasmine and Laura were a real part of, that tells the steps to getting that done. So that will be sent, and we hope that you'll read that and also share it. We want you to contact Congress and share an action about not cutting people off from funding, cutting municipalities that have sanctuary policies or states from federal funding that we're circulating right now. Sign it and share that as well. And then also get involved. If there's, we gave you lots of tips for how to make this happen in your community, and we hope you'll reach out to the immigrant community, reach out to your city councils and really get involved, reach out on campuses, however you can. That would be really, really great. So we're going to conclude. It's great to have you. Thank you so much. We're going to have in 2 more months, we'll have the next Sanctuary Everywhere call, which will, and webinar, which will be on surveillance across communities. Mary Zirkles of our Communities Against Islamophobia will be one presenter, and then we'll have some other presenters. Really grateful for you to join. Lori, do you want to add anything? Lori Kamala has been in the call the whole time. She is the director and coordinator of our Sanctuary Everywhere work. If you want to say some last words while I pull up the poll, that would be really great.
Sure. I think you mentioned it all, Lucy. Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch with everyone again. And we definitely encourage you to share our action alert that we'll be sending out around communicating with your members of Congress not to vote for anything that includes punishment for sanctuary cities. A really encouraging thing that I heard today when I was speaking with our Office of Public Policy and Advocacy was that we are seeing, in general, we're seeing fewer deportations in areas where there is resistance from members of Congress, which is contrary to what they'll lead you to believe with the fact that ICE is targeting sanctuary cities for increased deportation. It sounds like they're just sort of, this is all, it's all words so far, and it's not a lot of action. We have not seen a big difference in deportations around and detentions in sanctuary cities versus not sanctuary cities. So, and we think that part of it is that the resistance from our members of Congress really is working. So we want you to continue to push your members of Congress and make sure that they know how important this is to not vote for anything that includes punishment for sanctuary cities. So we thank you all. We encourage you to continue to stay involved with Sanctuary Everywhere through our website, through future webinars. And thank you. Thanks so much. Have a great night, everyone.
And it's great to see so many of you willing to take action, and no later than Monday, you'll receive a follow-up email with lots of resources and with the recording. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Lisa Marie, Erica, Lee, Jaja. Thank you so much for all of you for being here. Jasmine, we really appreciate you presenting, and thanks to all of you for being here and really caring about this and being willing to do something about it. We really appreciate it. Good night. We're going to open up, Diana, go ahead and open up the phones and people can say good night if they like.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.